I'm bringing you live one of my good friends, special guest, Judge Jasmine Twitty. She was the youngest judge appointed in the United States history at the age of 25 in Easley, South Carolina. She's also been featured on the Forbes list as a trailblazer. So, no further introductions. Judge Twitty, how are you doing today?
I am wonderful. How are you, Bartou?
Great.
Doctor Bartou.
I'm great. Man, haven't talked to you in a while. How you been doing lately?
Hanging in there, just embracing the silver lining in the midst of this pandemic.
Yes,
and you
understand that. Definitely. Understand that. So I know a lot of people want to get to know you, who you are, and how you became the youngest judge at the age of 25. So first, let's give a little background information about you. Who are you? Where are you from? And how did you get started?
Born and raised in Greenville, South Carolina, and I knew as early as elementary school that I was interested in the role in government. And the reason being is because I always believe those that are in a position of power have the ability to influence and shape society as we know it. And I thought, you know what? I want to be a part of that, right? So as time progressed and I matured, went on to college, and towards the end of my college career, I made the decision, instead of moving forward with professional school right at that moment, that I want to see where my professional experiences led me. So shortly after college graduation, I returned back home to Greenville, South Carolina, and I started working at what was then the only 24-hour court in South Carolina. So being in that setting, which I consider to be the classroom for my career, if you will, my background, my foundation rather, working there, being surrounded by judges, working hand in hand with law enforcement and local agencies, I realized that I could eventually attain the experience and knowledge necessary to become a summary court judge in the state of South Carolina. So once I came to that realization, I just became intentional about making sure I positioned myself and was prepared to, be appointed at some point.
That's good. So, yeah. That's good. All right. So you came back. How old were you when you first started working with the court system before you got?
I was 21.
21. So you knew at a young age that you wanted to do this.
So I knew at a young age that I was interested in a role in government. Never in my wildest dream did I think about becoming a judge. I didn't think about becoming a judge until I had started working as a clerk at the 24-hour court in South Carolina at that time. So once I realized that was something that I could do, I just kept at it and I didn't stop, and I'm still going till this day. So I've been appointed a judge now 5 years. August of this year will make 6 years.
Oh, congratulations on that work.
Thank you.
So what are the steps to go from working as a clerk to becoming a judge? If you don't mind breaking that down, just in case someone else out there is listening and wants to take those same steps.
It's a great question. Be mindful that the steps to becoming a judge vary from state to state. I will speak specifically to South Carolina. So as it pertains to my career path, obviously I started as a clerk court in a summary court. And as I said, it was a 24-hour court, the only 24-hour court in the state of South Carolina at that time. So a little bit about that court, with it being a bond court, it is where the initial proceeding take place in a criminal or traffic case. And so what that means is in South Carolina, a defendant has the right to be arraigned within 24 hours of their arrest. And so that's where bond court comes into play. And so in that role, I was responsible for preparing the legal documents that the judge needed and completing whatever research that they needed that went into ultimately the judge making their decisions. And then as it pertained to law enforcement, whenever they came into the office to get a warrant or what have you, helping them to research whatever judicial statutes or codes or laws that they needed to use to present their probable cause to the judge. Yeah. And so again, firsthand, experience with that. I like started to apply for like vacancies within South Carolina. And I applied like everywhere imaginable. And sometimes I got interviews, sometimes I didn't. If I did interview, oftentimes I didn't get a call back. But I got my first yes in 2015 from the city of Easley. And so, after I was appointed, even starting to, preside in court, I had to pass a certification exam, in which I did prepare for that through like self-study and, with the help and guidance of my colleagues and mentors. And fortunately for me, I actually passed the exam before even going to judge school. So again, it's just about like being intentional about preparation. And it really was for me a moment of like preparation met opportunity. I was forever a student, constantly learning and wanting to know more. Anytime legislation changed, I wanted to know why it changed and how it affected those that it was meant to protect and serve. And obviously how it ultimately affected the courts and how we would have to like change our processes and policies moving forward.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
With the studying and like you did self-studying and all of that, you said a mentor helped you with, and also with your colleagues. How influential was that mentor in pushing you and getting you to this next level?
So mentorship has been very influential in my life. And the whole purpose of me having a mentor was, someone that had already been there, done that, and I was able to learn from their experiences. And, learning from their experiences also helped me to further realize like, okay, this is attainable. It's not a matter of if, but when. Like I can definitely do this. So it really made a difference to have that support. It helped like with my confidence and showing up and, just to take it a step further. I mean, obviously I use those mentors as references, professional references, when it came to applying for judgeships. So whenever, the municipality that was interested in me called them, they could speak firsthand to, my knowledge and growth, like since they've known me. So that was beneficial and paid off in that regard, And I make sure I know like how important that was for me coming through the process. So, even now with, newer judges coming on board, I make sure I do everything that I possibly can to show up for them the same way that, people showed up for me as I was a new judge. So
you went from having a mentor to becoming a mentor.
Yes.
Do you keep in contact with the ones that you menteed? And also, what kind of references and influence are you giving those that's coming up under you?
Yeah. So I definitely continue in the capacity of a mentor, not only to colleagues, but even to like college and younger students. Just however it is that I can show up for them, whatever space they are in their life. And the good thing about mentorship, whether it is a student or a colleague, we get to have that professional relationship, but also a personal relationship as well to support one another. So I think that's good too. And I think oftentimes, when people are seeking mentorship, they're just thinking about, okay, what's in it for me? What can I get for my game? But I think it's important to make sure you're actually intentional about connecting with the person on more than just a professional level, because you want it to be an even exchange, if you will, Yeah.
I understand that.
I think sometimes people lose sight of that. So I think it's good to touch on that.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad you even mentioned that. Also, networking. With you getting in that position, I know your network has grown exponentially. So do you talk to your mentors and mentees about the network, and do you welcome people into your network, and how can someone get in there?
Yeah. So it is important to build that network because, as the saying go, you are as good as the people beside you or around you. Yes. And that is important. You want to select people that will uplift you. And when it comes to networking and connecting with new people, find like genuine interests that you all have in common and how you can be supportive of one another, and always put yourself in places not only that you're comfortable in, that you're uncomfortable in as well. Because I do think a significant amount of growth can come from that exposure, as well as potential relationships as well.
Yeah. Leadership talks and lives, we discussed that of being comfortable, being uncomfortable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people got to understand, to grow, you have to be uncomfortable because you have to be exposed to something new. So when you join in different networks, and even when you're leveling up in your career or just personally, there's going to be times where you're uncomfortable, where you just have to sit in that and just grow with it, you know, and just keep making those steps daily to get there.
I think that's where the significant amount of growth comes from too. Like when you're in uncomfortable, you know, situations, and by uncomfortable, I don't mean like where it's like, oh my gosh, this is unbearable. But when it's something that's like outside of your comfort zone, outside of your norm, something that stretches you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I know you had to get in that position to become a judge. You had to go from point A to point Z, and you had to be a little uncomfortable. Definitely when, you know, probably studying and taking a test and having to also being that young. So can you speak about being that young amongst other judges, and how did you feel, and how did you step up to the plate to let everyone know that, hey, I belong here because I did the work just as well as you?
Great question, Bartou. So how I navigated that space was I, you know, carried myself in a professional manner. I always, you know, have made sure like I showed up in a light or presence in the way I want to be respected or treated. So I definitely think that helped. And, you know, to be able to, I guess you can say, gain my colleagues' vote of confidence or trust, if you will. Yeah. That's where I would like reach out and like ask to have lunch, or ask to drop by their office and, you know, have a conversation with them. Because, you know, I did believe and still believe there is something to be learned. You know, even now, being almost 6 years in, I still make sure that, you know, I'm intentional about connecting with more seasoned judges and nurturing those relationships, because, you know, there's something to learn there. And, you know, I feel like I've gotten to a point in my career, you know, where they also call on me to get my opinion about certain things. So it's like give and take in our relationships, just having that understanding and realizing that, you know, we all bring something a valuable perspective to the table. So doing that. And another thing is to, when it comes to self-study and, you know, being prepared, like I know when I preside in Easley, there was like certain circumstances that was unique to that community. And now that I'm in Traveler's Rest, I'm noticing that there are certain circumstances that's unique to that community. And so whatever I see that those issues are that commonly comes before my court, I make sure that I'm intentional about getting more training on that subject matter so that I can better serve not only the community, but the case parties, the victims and defendants that are involved in the cases that come before the court. And, you know, even if it's something, I feel like even if you study certain things, you always have the experts, like that's what they do for a living, you know? And so I'm intentional about making sure I place myself in spaces, even with those, so that the court can have the access to the resources that we need to better serve everyone. I think to be successful in my role, it truly takes more than myself. It takes a village for us to serve those that we are supposed to represent and protect in the community.
Yeah, it definitely does. You really need a village. No one's out here as in just an island. We all got to work together, motivate each other, keep pushing each other, and all of that. So with that being said, I'm gonna just lead into community service, because you want to help the community, you know, as much as possible. So do you do any community service, and how do you help the community?
Great question. So in my, I guess you could say, in my professional role, community service would look like, obviously, you know, my being appointed to my position, I serve a particular community or my jurisdiction, if you will. And so for that, I believe not only am I meant to preside there, but that I partner like with local nonprofits that offer services that I see that are lacking in the community, if you will, to better serve the case parties, such as the defendants and the victims. So that's what I do from the bench. For example, United Way of Greenville County has, as we previously had a conversation about, they have these comprehensive community resource guides. And sometimes people find themselves in situations because they don't know what resources are available. And so with this comprehensive guide, it has every resource imaginable, such as like shelter, food, clothing, job resources, mental health counseling, you name it. And so I make sure that we have those brochures on hand to hand out to people. So for example, if someone comes before the court for shoplifting, which they took items that they may need for their baby or food or clothing, whatever the case may be, then, obviously taking property that doesn't belong to them isn't the answer, but now they have access to this community resource guide and they can now contact these organizations to get the help that they need. So we distribute those in court, and I also make sure that law enforcement has some on handy at all times as well. Anytime they're out in the community or even if they make an arrest, they have those like community resource guides they can give to people. And so outside of court, again, because mentoring has been influential in my life, I currently sit on a newer board, on the board of a newer nonprofit in Greenville that's specifically geared to mentoring for young men. And so that's something that's personal to me. And I definitely enjoy serving in that capacity as well.
All right. If you don't mind, since you are a board member for this new nonprofit, could you give us a little more information? Like, what is the name of this nonprofit and how do you help the young men in the Greenville, South Carolina community?
So the name of the nonprofit is Young Brothers Academy. And part of its mission is to uplift and serve the young men of the upstate of South Carolina through mentoring and community outreach. As a matter of fact, I don't know, you may have left Greenville by then, but one of the co-founders is my dear friend, Justice Cox. So he's one of the co-founders of that organization. And the organization has been going strong now about 3 years. And the community has been very receptive to this program. So many young men have come through this program. Their parents are excited about being involved as much as they can. The nonprofit even hosts an annual gala in which you get to like meet all the mentee participants, and they're dressed in a tuxedo. So not only is it like an opportunity for the community to see the awesome works that the organization is doing, but it's also an opportunity to expose the young men that are being mentored by allowing them to dress up and take part in the celebration and what the organization is all about.
Okay, man.
So it's a beautiful thing.
That's really good, man. We definitely need to make sure we give back to the community, young men, to keep them on the right path so that they don't have to see you in court for something that could have been a resource that they could have had at a younger age or prior to make them have a better life and just keep them.
Yeah, and that's definitely what we want to avoid. So yeah, the nonprofit is actually on Instagram at Young Brothers Academy. I think it'll be great for everyone to check out.
I'm gonna make sure I put that in the details below because I want as many people definitely in that area because I live there and I know how it is for some of the kids growing up. There's some resources that they don't have or not even aware of that the academy can be able to show them and showcase, because it is great. That is a great organization. I appreciate that. You have a trying job as a judge, and right now when you first got on, you mentioned COVID. So let's talk a little bit about self-care. What are you doing to keep yourself grounded in these times of being a judge and the COVID?
So before COVID, it has always, my way of self-care has always been able to find a means to escape, right? And for me, that's travel, that's new food experiences. And before COVID, I always had this idea for me to truly escape. Like I had to leave the country. Like I just had to be outside of the United States to like hit the reset button. But obviously during these times, I can't do that. So you know what that has looked like? That has looked like going to a local mountain and like hiking for a day or making a weekend out of it, you know, visiting local wineries, you know, trying like local restaurants that I hadn't tried before. And I know like Greenville is a great place to be, especially given like where it's situated between like Atlanta and Charlotte. But for me, I always felt the need that I had to leave town to truly escape. And so, you know, being in the midst of this pandemic, that looks different now. And I'm honestly not upset about the fact that I've had to change what self-care look like and realizing that I don't have to go such a great distance to truly hit the reset button.
Yeah, that's good. Sometimes just taking in and seeing some of the things that we overlook.
Right. Yeah.
So I say COVID has definitely done that for you, me, and probably many other people where we assumed to hit the reset button, we had to go someplace far. Now you can go to the local markets, supporting small Black businesses. It could be any of those things now. Sometimes some self-care, because we always are at work or we always trying to be busy. Sometimes a little bit of television, so a good meal, and you go, you know?
Yeah. And you know, right now this year, well, in 2020, I had to become more intentional about just being, you know, even if that looked like me doing absolutely nothing in the moment, you know, that was self-care. Because I think sometimes we get so caught up in like, to be productive, you have to be engaging in something. And sometimes being productive is actually sitting still and like allowing yourself not waking up to an alarm clock and creating that time where you truly just have time for yourself, not doing anything. So 2020 has definitely taught me that. And in doing so, I in return became more intentional about my physical health as well, you know, which is just as important, if not more important than your mental health. Obviously they do go hand in hand, but, you know, realizing that the things that we consume, such as, you know, food, even the things that we expose ourselves to, that ultimately affects our mental health. So we're taking care of ourselves in the physical aspect. I think that provides some relief for your mental health as well.
Definitely. And when you're recharged, you know what I'm saying, you can go back to work and be as productive as you can. And that right there is going to help the community even more because you got a sound mind and body. About making sound decisions and having a sound body. What are your career goals moving forward? Like, what is your dream job from here? Or are you already in that position?
That is still to be written. I think with this unique position, I think there's still opportunities to pursue, probably some that I know of or don't even know of at this point. I am honestly still figuring that out. So it's good to talk about that. Like even being where I am, I think people like, oh, do you think you reached the pinnacle of your career? Or do you think you peaked too soon? I'm like, no, I'm just getting started.
Yeah.
So honestly, I don't know right now.
Well, that's a good thing. Because now you're going with the wave and you're going to take on the opportunity that come and which is going to help grow and expand you. It's going to make you feel a little uncomfortable as you get comfortable in that position to keep growing, you know? So I can definitely understand that.
Yep, I am open to the endless opportunities.
Hey, that's what 2021 is all about. Endless opportunities. I'm going to just go ahead and put that into the universe now.
Okay. Endless opportunities.
All right. So, right now I got one more question for you. For you to make a statement. What advice can you give to anyone pursuing their dreams at the moment?
Remain true to who you are. And I know we hear that often, but what I mean by that is never compromise your integrity or self-worth for the sake of an opportunity, because I believe when opportunity is created for you, it will accept you as you are. So if anything, it's about preparing yourself for that moment. Compromise for that moment.
Man, that's great advice.
Mm-hmm.
Don't compromise yourself for the opportunity. Stick true to
Mm-hmm.
who you are, believe in yourself, and just keep pushing, and you will
Mm-hmm.
get to the end goal. I couldn't say it any
Absolutely.
better. Couldn't say it any better.
Absolutely.
So, Judge Twitty, if people want to get in contact with you, people want to give you an email, someone wants to help contribute to your nonprofit, can you let us know how, and how can they get in contact with you?
Okay, there we go.
All right, Judge Twitty. If you want to be engaged with you and contact you, what are some ways that they can reach out to you?
So my public social media profile is on Instagram. You can follow me at Judge Twitty. I am also on Twitter at Judge_Twitty, and I am accessible by email at jazztwitty@gmail.com. Twitty is spelled Twitty.
All right, great.
Yeah, connect with me and stay engaged.
All right, great. So I really appreciate you being on today. This is the youngest judge in United States history, Judge Jasmine Twitty. At the age of 25, she was appointed judge in Easley, South Carolina. She currently still is a judge in Travelers Rest, South Carolina. One of Forbes list Trailblazers of the year. Hey, I appreciate you coming on Pill Talk and giving us some of that guidance and wisdom. Hope to see you soon.
Talk soon.